Another brutal loss for the Philadelphia Eagles. They could not get it done. They get baked by Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down in Tampa Bay. No revenge game this time around after that brutal playoff loss back in January, and the Eagles fall to 2-2 behind just another awful performance from their defense. A lot of questions remain with this team. A lot of answers are needed, but I just don't know if they have the solution right now. We will talk about all of it. Welcome in to the A to Z post-game show, live right here on the A to Z Philly YouTube channel and Facebook as well, presented by BetMGM. Go ahead and check them out. Use our bonus code ATOZPA. The Philadelphia Eagles are in trouble, ladies and gentlemen, in a division where I thought they would be able to run away because I do think they're the most talented roster, in a division where you have the lowly Giants, the Cowboys, who did nothing to improve, and the Washington Commanders, who have actually been a surprise. I thought the Eagles would be able to get a nice cushion, but now heading into the Week 5 bye, which is desperately needed, by the way, as this team is banged up, the Eagles have a lot more questions than anybody could have assumed at this point. Tough game, man. Just a tough game. It's almost like I don't even feel the frustration in a way that I have in the last couple of weeks. Like, last week, even though they won, I was frustrated with how it happened. The week before was just utter disappointment. I wasn't even that mad over the last couple of hours because I feel like I know. I feel like the identity of this team has been shown. They don't have a defense. They don't have a defense, and they need more playmakers. They need more playmakers. Yes, the coaches can put these guys in better positions to succeed. And yes, they need to make better timely decisions with the football. But they have a major concern, ladies and gentlemen. Two main issues, in my opinion, that I think are really going to hold this team back. So we will get into it all. Once again, welcome on into the A to Z post-game show. Do me a favor and like the stream if you have not yet. Hit that subscribe button. We have been growing very rapidly. So I appreciate everybody for coming in and supporting the channel. We will get to your comments in just a couple of seconds. But man, where do I start with this game, ladies and gentlemen? Where do I start? They go down 33-16, almost similar to last January when they lost 32-9, and Baker Mayfield torched it all over the field. I knew coming out of the gate that the Philadelphia Eagles were not going to win this football game. I thought they did have one chance, though. I thought they had a chance to prove me wrong. But when you go down, 21-0, and it almost was 28. I mean, the guy drops a touchdown wide open in the end zone. The Bucs probably could have had 45, 50 points if they wanted to in this game. And, I don't know how they fix it at this point. I mean, they come out of the gate. Baker Mayfield goes 8 for 9, 62 yards on the first drive. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, wide open. I mean, there's nobody even around them. Baker's getting the ball out in 2 seconds. And then, they score a touchdown immediately. Eagles go 3 and out. Then they come back again. Another easy drive right down the field. 15-yard touchdown. 14-0. Eagles go 3 and out again. And then they come and the Philadelphia Eagles buried themselves in the first quarter. It was 14-0. I said, okay, they just need to come out and put together one drive. Just one drive. And what do? They actually get a stop. The Bucs punt it to Cooper DeJean, who is filling in for Britton Covey. And I feel bad for DeJean. Both punts in this game, he gets smacked by his own team. But Cooper DeJean calls a fair catch. And what happens? He loses the ball. He muffs it. And you would think that a penalty is going to be called on Tampa Bay because their guy ran into him after he called a fair catch. But what do you know? The Eagles actually pushed him into Cooper DeJean. Isaiah Rodgers finally gets his first action of the year, and he pushes him into Cooper DeJean, who muffs it, and you set them up right on the 20-yard line. Those are just the mistakes that are just brutal in a football game. You cannot, you can't do that. Good football teams don't do that. And I guess my overall takeaway, there's other plays we're going to talk about, but once they set them up right there, once they set them up and gave them a 21-0 spot, I knew this game was not in reach. But even crazy enough, the whole flow of the game flips and you get down in the third quarter. Matter of fact, I want to give a shout out to Saquon Barkley, because without Saquon, I don't know where this team would be at right now. Saquon Barkley comes out of the half and this team needs a spark, right? They go into half and they're down 24-7 and you're thinking, okay, this game is all but over, right? No life to this team, but they score before half. They have an opportunity. They convert a fourth down, and Saquon Barkley comes out of the gate with a 59-yard big-time play. He opens up the field, and the Philadelphia Eagles get all the way down. They end up doing the brotherly shove. They get in the end zone. Then it's a 10-point game, and all of a sudden, you're like, holy crap, they're actually back in this game. They're actually back in this game. Then the Philadelphia Eagles defense steps up. They actually made some plays, but on the next drive, the Buccaneers convert 2 huge third downs. I think it was a 3rd and 7 and a 3rd and 11. Can't happen. Good teams cannot happen. We're going to get to Vic Fangio in a second because I have had enough of Vic Fangio already. But then the Buccaneers get it down to 3rd and goal. You stop them once, right? You thought it was in, but you stop them, and then the next play, they punch it in for the touchdown. However, you actually don't bear the whole burden there because Isaiah Rodgers makes up for his early game blunder, and he blocks the extra point. Keely Ringo makes a hell of a play, runs it all the way back for 2. That brings, essentially, it's a 4-point gap right there, right? They score 6, you get 2 back. Great. 2-possession game. You're down by 14, and this is where it gets to the point where I am concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question for the chat. I will get to all of your comments, I promise. But my first question to you in the chat here is, are you concerned about Jalen Hurts' turnovers? Has it gotten to the point where you are overly concerned? Because the Eagles are down by 2 scores, and Jalen Hurts hasn't made the turnover in the game. Yeah, he's getting hit, he's getting sacked. But the Eagles move the ball all the way down the field. And here is what really it's mind-boggling. Here's what just throws me off, okay? I think they had like 6 or 7 plays up until that point. Saquon and Dallas Goedert. Nobody could stop Saquon and Dallas Goedert. It was a little 3-yard flat pass to Saquon, a little 7-yard slant to Dallas Goedert. You're moving the ball down the field. You finally caught a rhythm. 1st and 10 from the 19. 2 brutal mistakes. Number 1, Jalen Hurts goes for the big play. Jalen Hurts feels the pressure coming. Todd Bowles did a tremendous job all day of sending blitzes and sending different stunts and disguises, and they're just eating up the Eagles' offensive line. You know he's not going to have time to throw the football. Jalen Hurts feels the pressure coming, and instead of scrambling out and making the decision to either go down or throw the ball away, right? You need a score in this situation. Jalen Hurts throws it, and he tries to get it to the end zone, and he strip sacked, and the Bucs take over. And, it's concerning at this point. It's concerning at this point. I don't care what anybody says. I'm sorry. I like Jalen Hurts. I want him to be great. You paid him to be the guy. Over $50 million per year. His instinctual awareness right now, his pocket awareness, his decision-making is bad right now. It is bad right now. Matter of fact, I got something to show you guys that I saw during the game. Jalen Hurts has 8 giveaways in the first 4 games. Back in 2020, when the Eagles imploded, Carson Wentz had 8 giveaways in the first 4 games. The turnovers have gotten concerning at this point. Jalen Hurts is doing everything better. His completion percentage is up. He's better against the blitz, but the crucial turnovers cannot be looked past. It's an issue. It's a huge issue. However, here's my other issue on that play, ladies and gentlemen. If you go back and watch the play, they showed the replay. All 4 receivers are running downfield to the end zone. It is 1st and 10 from the 19. You are moving the ball downfield seamlessly. You are in a great rhythm as an offense. I don't understand. I see this with other teams as well. They try to go for the big play. They just try to, open up the field entirely. How can you have no safety net on that play? Jalen Hurts is getting blitzed. He's getting pressured. He had nobody to throw to. He should have ran out and thrown it away or went down. That's bad on Jalen Hurts. But how does Kellen Moore draw up a play like that on 1st down And all of it together is just a colossal mistake. And they give it away, and the Bucs never looked back after that. Baker Mayfield threw a 3rd and 14 incomplete on the next drive. Avonte Maddox, 3rd and 14, your last shot, really. The Bucs were going to punt away. You're still down 2 scores, but you're about to get the ball back, and Avonte Maddox should be benched for what he did on that 3rd and 14. Baker Mayfield scrambles out. He should have been sacked by Bryce Huff, but he rolls out to his left. I don't understand what Avonte Maddox was thinking. Okay, I've never played cornerback before, but I don't understand what he was thinking on 3rd and 14 to run up to Chris Godwin, grab him around the waist with a bear hug, especially right in front of the ref. And all Baker had to do was pick that up and have a little bit of intelligence as a quarterback to throw it 15 yards in Godwin's vicinity, and the flag gets thrown. Avonte Maddox with a brutal play on 3rd and 14, and the Buccaneers end up going down, kicking a field goal, and that was it. Then Jalen Hurts just got absolutely shredded. Jalen Hurts has a turnover issue. Nick Sirianni, I think, is going to get a lot of heat on this game. I'm starting to really wonder what he does. Not that I haven't wondered that before, but at some point, Nick has to do something, either on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball. You know you're down A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, right? So you look at what happened last week. You didn't get Goedert involved a lot early. I know Jalen had the one pass, I think it was like 20, 25 yards right in the hands of Goedert. He dropped it. But you did nothing to get the rhythm of the offense going. You got smacked in the face to begin this game. And instead of utilizing Saquon Barkley, which I've said the last couple of weeks, in the first quarter, you don't get him going until the second half. Saquon Barkley comes through with a big play every single week for this offense, and you don't use him out of the gate. Now, other than that, I want to get to the defensive side of the ball. All right. And this is going to be my main rant of the day. And then I promise I will get to your comments. Ladies and gentlemen, on a scale from 1 to 10 in the chat right now, how confident are you in the Eagles defense for the entirety of the season? Right now, 10 being the most confident, 1 being the least confident. How confident are you in this Eagles defense? If I had to really give a true estimate, I would say maybe a 2 or 3. That might be generous. I am so frustrated with Vic Fangio. And here's where I'm really frustrated after a game like this. You see what happened last week. The Broncos, who stink, absolutely run all over the Buccaneers. They make them look like fools. Not because Baker isn't a good quarterback. Baker's actually really improved over the years as a quarterback with his instincts and his just his awareness and his ability to throw the football, a tight spiral. Like, he just plays in a good system in Tampa Bay. But the Broncos made him look absolutely silly last week because they sacked him 7 times. Baker took 13 sacks in 3 weeks. And if you're the Eagles watching the tape, how do you not draw up anything to get some pressure on this guy? Did they really think that their front four, because they played well last week, was going to just come out against a Todd Bowles team that's well coached and rush for the whole game and get the Baker? 14-0 to begin this game. And when you hired Vic Fangio, you brought in the same concept, the same scheme, the same soft defense that is not going to work in the long term. I would like somebody to show me a team that primarily plays zone defense and rushes for the entire game that wins. Which teams do that win? None. It doesn't work. It doesn't work all the time. I'm getting really frustrated with Vic Fangio and his inability to adapt or adjust. I mean, I saw maybe a couple blitzes today, and all they did was brought 1 extra man. They don't bring 6, they don't bring 7, and Eagle fans are arguing with me saying, oh, well, Baker Mayfield's getting the ball out quick. Oh, yeah? Well, you know why okay, let's sit back. Let's sit back and let Baker Mayfield throw the ball in 1.5 seconds. Let's do nothing to try to throw him off. If that is your alternative, then this team and the fans who think that have an issue. If that's your alternative, to just sit back and hope and pray, I don't know what to say, man. I don't know what to say. Jim Johnson, rest his soul, man. He would be pissed right now. He would be pissed right now. This Eagles defense, it starts with the mentality, man. I understand that the corners and the personnel need to be better. I thought the linebackers were not good today. The personnel needs to be better. They need to play better. But the system in which they are being coached is not good enough. Maybe I'm taking away some of the blame from the players. I don't think I am. I think the players, it's just frustrating, man. It's frustrating. They have hard hitters on his defense. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who did give up a touchdown, but he's willing to make a big play. Zach Baun, go up front, man. And Brandon Graham gets a sack. Josh Sweat had a sack. But they don't do anything to try to throw off the Bucs defense or the Bucs offense. All they did all game was check downs. Check down. And then it opens up the big play, and the Eagles are leaving them wide open. I think they had 13 missed tackles in this game, which is another thing that is all coaching and technique. It is frustrating, man. It is frustrating. It's unbelievable, man. Bryce Huff finally logged a tackle. Ladies and gentlemen, Bryce Huff logged a tackle. He is in the stat sheet as a Philadelphia Eagle. It only took 4 games, but Bryce Huff has a tackle. It is time to admit that Bryce Huff is a miss, ladies and gentlemen. I was watching him very closely. There was a couple third downs or second downs he was in, and I'm watching this guy, and he if he doesn't get past the initial point of the first lineman, he gives up. He cannot get past his guy, and he gives up. He throws his arms down to his side, and he walks. There was a third down late in the game where Baker scrambles. I think it was like 3rd and 7, and Bryce Huff couldn't even get near him. He couldn't even track him down. And the other play where it was 3rd and 14, Huff had a straight line at Baker Mayfield and still couldn't get to him. Bryce Huff he's a miss. He's a miss. And we're relying on 37-year-old Brandon Graham to try to get to the quarterback. Jalen Carter, goes out in this game. I mean, they didn't really make an impact, Carter and Davis. And I will say, though, to be fair, it was 100 degrees on the field and 50 players go out with cramps and, heat illness. Reed Blankenship went out with a heat illness. Look, it's a tough situation to play in. It was. But the Bucs aren't making those excuses, are they? The Bucs aren't making those excuses when they have, 6 sacks? 6 sacks in this game. They're not making excuses. They brought pressure, man. They brought pressure, and personally, I'm just tired of having the soft mentality of this Eagles defense where they just don't do anything different. So that's my thoughts. That's my rant. I said I wasn't going to get too mad about it. I'm really not that mad because at this point, I'm starting to see this Eagles team for what it is, and they're just okay. They're just okay. Now, do I think A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith will give a huge jolt to this team? Absolutely. A.J. Brown, the first game, the offense was immaculate. Do I think A.J. Brown will give this team a spark? Yeah. But this team's not good in situational football. They make too many mistakes. They can't tackle on the defensive side of the ball. And going down in a 21-0 hole, you're just not going to win a lot of football games that way. And the last thing I'll say is that the Eagles have not won the turnover battle in 12 games. That's hard to do, man. Most of the time in this National Football League, you win the turnover battle, you win the football game. 12 games, they have not won the turnover battle. And, one more thing, ladies and gentlemen, and then I'm going to get to your comments, okay? Actually, I'll read a couple now. One player on this Eagles team did something today that should require him to get cut. One Eagles player on this roster should be cut, not even in 5 minutes, right now. They should go up to this player and say, you are not a member of this team anymore. I'm going to get to that in 1 second. But let's shout out some people in the chat. Once again, welcome into the A to Z Postgame Show presented by BetMGM. Terry Jones says, we are not prepared this week at all. Alex Tricaro says, where was 55 all game? Dan says, this was the game I expect the Eagles to play last week. We have a $255 million turd. Little Griffith says, I lost 4 pounds. Brian says, Huff is our Albert Hainsworth. It's really sad, man. It is a complete whiff. It is a complete whiff on behalf of the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's time to just recognize your losses. It's time to just cut your losses at this point. Steve says Huff is crap. Jeffrey says at least Nolan gives effort. Huff who? Hey, I'll give Nolan Smith credit. I thought he had a couple nice run stops against his Bucs offense, even though the Bucs didn't really run it at all. At one point, they were like 40 passes to 10 runs because, it was just too easy for them. They only ran the ball 25 times. They threw it 47. Baker had an amazing start to this game. I wrote it down at one point. At halftime, he was 22 for 33 at half. But before that last drive kind of skewed things. At one point, Baker was like 15 for 17. He was just shredding this defense, and they were leaving him wide open. Mike Evans is a beast, but he really didn't have that good of a start in the first couple of games, and he was just all over the place. I thought Quinion did a decent job. Slay got beat a couple times, but really they attacked the middle of the field, and Avonte Maddox showed again that he's a liability today. I think it needs to be Cooper DeJean in there for Avonte Maddox. Maybe you disagree with me, but I would go with the young guy at this point. I just think he's a better player. Yeah, I can't find it, but man, there were just a couple brutal plays in timely situations that really hurt this team. Sintel says this is the same exact defense from last year, playing the same way every game. I agree. No adjustments, Sintel. And Vic Fangio's really frustrated me. Can we have a defensive coordinator that will play aggressive? Right? We need to see a couple cover zeros. We need to see something to throw off this offense. We need something. We cannot continue to play this bend, don't break defense. It is driving me insane. It is what we have had to watch for the last 3 to 4 years. I can't take it anymore. And back to Nick Sirianni, he's not absolved of just all the blame here, even though he doesn't coach either side of the ball. I mean, Nick, it all comes down to you leadership-wise, right? This Eagles team got punched in the face. Yes, they did make an effort to come back, but they looked drained, man. It looked like they showed up to Tampa Bay not remembering they had a football game today. I know it was 100 degrees. I know it was not, the best optimal conditions for football, but the Bucs didn't make excuses. They came out ready to rock. Steve says it's up to coaches to have the team prepared and in shape. Definitely are needed. Our players play too soft. Let's see. ABD says, nope, DeJean over Maddox. CJ says, I understand we're hit with heat and injuries, but what happened to the next man up mentality? Exactly. Raheem says, big difference without our playmakers on offense. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to signal out one player. One player in this matchup that needs to be cut from the Eagles roster. I would not mind if Howie Roseman went up to this player after the game and said, you are not a member of this team anymore. Can anybody guess who it is? Did anybody see what happened on social media? I'm not even the type to pin all these little social media things, but I have never seen what I saw today from one of the Eagles players. I'm going to talk about it in 1 second, but I got to give a shout out to BetMGM. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy all your favorite sports like never before at BetMGM. Sign up using our code ATOZPA and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. When you register with BetMGM, you'll get instant access to parlays, live bets, player props, and daily boosted odds specials. And with BetMGM at your fingertips, every play and every game matter more than ever. So sign up today with the bonus code ATOZPA. Get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I need to talk about Devin White. That's right. Anybody remember Devin White? Anybody remember who Devin White is? We had a situation today where at halftime, Devin White, who's a linebacker of the Philadelphia Eagles, I know he played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and, won a Super Bowl, but he's a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, right? So during the game, Devin White goes out and retweets a video of Lavonte David forcing the fumble against the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me repeat that, okay? Devin White retweets a post about Lavonte David forcing a fumble against his own team. And what's even worse is Devin White admitted it. He ended up unreposting it and he said that he meant to like it. I only meant to heart it That's my twin for life. It's in my favorites. Now, I try to keep the personal stuff away, ladies and gentlemen. I think Devin White's actually handled the situation pretty well. But this right here, this is like Kenny Gainwell stuff in the Super Bowl. This is embarrassing. This is a loser mentality, man. I know you're frustrated with your role. I know you're friends with the Buccaneers players. Are you serious? You're out here reposting. First off, you're on your phone during the game or at halftime, and you're reposting a video of your team getting their ass kicked? Are you serious? You should not be on the team after today, Devin White. You want your trade? Fine, you have it. I'll trade and I'll pay to get Devin White off this team. I'll sign a petition to get him off this team. You got people in the locker room who are supporting the other team. You got to go. You got to go after this. This is embarrassing. I've never seen a player do this. I understand going out and maybe if the Bucs were playing, I don't know, the Saints or the Panthers or the Commanders, whatever. You know, support your boy. Fine. They're playing the Eagles. You're on the sideline. You're in the locker room and you're supporting the other team. You got to go. You got to go, Devin White. I would cut him. I'll trade him. I'll pay another team to take him on. Goodbye. Goodbye. That's my rant on Devin White, man. That's what I'm actually more frustrated with right now, other than the result of this game. Because I can say the same things every week about this team with Vic Fangio's, lack of aggressiveness and their lack of ability to tackle and cover guys in the open field and all this stuff. But this is just sad, man. This is just embarrassing. This is embarrassing. CJ Merrifield says, I'm sorry. I want to know why we run Gainwell and not Will Shipley. I'm sorry I'm not a Gainwell fan. And another point to that, CJ, is I'm tired of the Eagles taking Saquon Barkley out in the red zone. I don't understand it. Maybe he was gassed from his 59-yard run, but it seems like every time the Eagles get inside the 20, Kellen Moore pulls Saquon over to the sideline and they put in Kenny Gainwell. And I just don't get it. I don't get it. Saquon is the best player. He's the most dynamic threat on this team. Why are you consistently subbing him out inside the 20? I just don't get it. Steve says, wow, Devin White should be fired for that. Absolutely. And I'm not even a guy to call for other guys' jobs. Like, sometimes I'm frustrated, heated in the moment. Yeah, Vic Fangio should be gone, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, man, like, these guys are getting paid a lot of money, whether they're playing or not. They're a part of an organization, and these organizations have high standards. This is just unacceptable. And he admitted it. He admitted it. Unbelievable. Prince Monito, what's up, man? Alex says, go get a check from another team. Alex is probably sending them the playbook. He might be. He might be. I mean, if you're so buddy-buddy with Levante David, I'm sure he may be telling him, hey, man, I don't care about this Eagles squad. Here's what they like to do. Here's what they're going to do. Embarrassing, man. Another stat about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has a turnover in every game this season. He has 9 straight games with a turnover. He has 3 turnovers in the red zone this season. And he has 27 turnovers since the start of last season. Man, that is brutal. That is brutal. If I had to ask you guys right now, and let me read some of the answers from before. Can't find them now. It was a little bit too far up, but what is your number one concern with this Eagles team right now? If I had to ask the chat, what is your number one concern with the Philadelphia Eagles roster right now? What is it? What is it? Ray says, what did Devin White say? He literally admitted that he reposted it. He says, I only meant to like it. That's my twin for life. It's in my favorites. So he says, my bad, Greg. I didn't mean to repost that tweet where everybody could see it. I meant to like it, whereas it's private. So he's still supporting these boys during a game in which he's on the sideline, but he just meant to make it where nobody else could see it. It's just not good, man. It's not a good look. Eagles win 62% of the games that Lane Johnson plays in, and when he doesn't play, they only win 38%. Earlier, we found out right before the game that Lane was out AJ was out. These guys are going to provide a huge boost to this team, but I'm worried about the defensive side of the ball because I don't think they have the boost. I don't think they have the personnel. If I'm Howie Roseman, I get on the phone immediately with the New York Jets and I say, look, man, we can make amends. Your guy's not going to play for you. Our guy can't make a damn play for us. Let's just swap them back. You take Bryce Huff. We'll take Hassan Reddick. We'll call it an even thing. We'll take you out for a nice dinner on a yacht, and we'll call it even, man. They need more playmakers. They don't have it on defense. I think the offense has the playmakers. It's just Kellen Moore's got to be consistent from week to week. But the defense is just, it's embarrassing. It's not a Super Bowl defense. And unless they acquire more talent, it's not going to get better, especially with how Vic Fangio coaches these guys. They have no disruptors, and they do nothing to throw off quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield is a much better quarterback than he was years ago, but still, we saw it last week. All you had to do was take the game film from last week and watch Baker Mayfield get pummeled by the Denver Broncos pass rush. And they didn't do anything that worked for the Broncos. It's frustrating, man. Baker Mayfield was sacked 7 times last week by the Denver Broncos, and you did nothing to replicate that. All right, let's go to the chat, man. Calvin says, number one concern is defense. Mr. Man says, we got pounded. Y'all are worried about some dude on the bench. I mean, I'm just frustrated on his mentality. I just don't think you want to have guys like that in the locker room, but that's my personal opinion. Lee says, defense is my number one concern, even when healthy. Steve says, defensive schemes worry the heck out of me. ABD says, we need consistency. Alan says, where are the screenplays? Well, they didn't do any screens today. They don't have the personnel, I guess, but all the plays that they do, like, it's not how you like mold an offense. It's not how you mold an offense. And then they go down to the red zone, and when they finally do have Saquon in, they run it up the gut, back-to-back plays. Like, they have no unpredictability. They are so predictable. You know what they're going to do, and Jalen continues to make bad decisions with the football. Mr. Man says, Jalen stinks and Nick stinks most, but no, let's lead with bench sitting White. Listen, man, you look, it's just my opinion. I just don't think that you have guys in the locker room like that. I've talked about the defense. I've talked about Jalen in this show so far. I mean, what are we, like a half hour in? There's not much else I could say. They're missing a couple of their best weapons on offense. Their defense doesn't have the personnel. I mean, I'm trying to think back to what they did in this game. Jalen Hurts started this game 1 for 8. When do we get to the point where we just say Jalen's just, he's not cutting it? When do we get to the point where we're saying Jalen Hurts just can't make the throws? I think we've seen him. We've seen him be able to make the throws, but I also think it's fair enough to say that Jalen has to be able to be in the right system, right? And I think people look at Jalen Hurts 4 years in the league, and because he went to the Super Bowl in year 2, they say, oh, well, Jalen Hurts is up there with the upper echelon, with the tier 1s, with the top in the game. And I think it's just fair to say he just is not there. He might be a tier below, but for what he got paid, I don't think he is in that upper tier right now. I don't think he is in that top tier. You can't have 27 turnovers since the start of last year and be one of those top guys. Jalen Hurts has to be better. When can we look at Jalen Hurts? Because even now that I think about it, what was it, 2019, when Carson Wentz was out there with guys, I don't even remember who they had out there other than Zach Ertz. It was literally a bunch of players that are either, like they're not in the league. I don't remember their names. He was out there at least trying to win a game, and I think he won a couple games with these guys. When do we put the ball in Jalen's hands and say, hey, you got to go win us a football game, man? You got Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley. You got enough to go score some points and win games. He can't score 16 points. So I do agree with the Hurts criticism, and I think the decision-making is just brutal. And like I said, the biggest play in this game is when you're down 2 touchdowns and you're on the Tampa Bay 19. You are in reach of making this a 1-score game and jolting this team back into it, and you make the brutal turnover. That's really, I think, a good way to put it. The turnovers aren't just turnovers. They come at the worst possible times. They come in the red zone, or they come when you're at the 15, on a great drive, a 10-play drive. You're getting ready to score. They can't stop the bleeding. The turnovers come at the worst possible times. And it's frustrating, man. Saquon Barkley only had 10 touches today. Should have had more. CJ says Jalen looks uncomfortable with the new offense. Tim says a lot of bad tackling, gave up long runs in this play. Alan says, why not blitz corners, getting toasted anyway? Why not try something, right, Alan? Why not? Because that's not who Vic Fangio is. And when this Eagles organization hired Vic Fangio, keep in mind, the Dolphins wanted to get rid of him. The players were throwing jabs at Vic Fangio. They didn't really like his personality. Now, I kind of like his old school, style. I like how he comes in, doesn't take any BS. He's not going to play guys if they're not playing well. But his scheme is just not sustainable in the long term. And that's my other big takeaway, again, is that Vic Fangio's bend but don't break defense, I don't care if he's the grandfather of it. I could be the grandfather and the creator of the worst idea ever. The idea is never going to go anywhere. That defense does not work. It does not work. You can't let Baker Mayfield get the ball out quick. Meanwhile, you're only rushing 4, and you can't stick on your guy for 2 seconds. It's not good, man. It's not good. Way too many players in the open field. Way too many missed tackles. Not trending upwards, for sure. Manuel says, let's get rid of Fangio ASAP. The defense is trash. Brian says, we're missing Lane, AJ, and Smitty. Let's revisit Hurts after week 5. Hurts does need to be better. Brian, I think that's a fair point. I think a lot of the great quarterbacks in the league have great weapons, which does elevate their game. You can get guys open. You can make plays. So I do think that's a bit of a fair point. However, you can't excuse the turnovers in bad situations. You just can't do it. Jalen Hurts has started to look a lot more mediocre since he was in the Super Bowl. And even in the Super Bowl, as great of a game as he played, the one play that everybody constantly thinks about was the brutal turnover, the fumble that awarded them 7 points. It's frustrating. Pont Flair says Jalen's fumble killed the momentum that we had. Yeah, that was the last straw right there. You had a chance. And after that, it was over. It was over after that. ABD says the turnover was brutal. Why the play call for a pass? I agree. And that's what I mentioned. As bad as that turnover was, the defense, I want to look it up how many plays that drive was. I think it was like 8. Yep, it was 8. 8 plays, 50 yards. 4-minute drive, 8 plays. You are just cruising. Matter of fact, let's go take a look at that drive. Let's take a look at that drive. Jalen Hurts, left for 4 yards. He runs it. Passes to Barkley, who runs it up 27 yards. That was an incredible broken tackle, by the way. Saquon just always makes these big plays. Saquon for 3 yards. Then a little pass left to Dallas Goedert for 6 yards. Then Hurts up the middle for 2 yards. Little pass left to Goedert for 8 yards. Like I said, you're in rhythm. They're giving it to you. They're playing back. They're not doing anything. They're letting you run right down. You could feel the tension. Even though there were a lot of Eagles fans in the crowd, you're starting to feel that pressure building up if you're the Bucs fans. Like, uh-oh, they're about to come down and make this a 7-point game with over a quarter. Jalen Hurts runs it for 4 yards, and then they go for the big play on first down. They go for the big play. If you look at that play, I wish I had it up, but all 4 receivers were going to the end zone. It's a bad play call, man. But Hurts also has to be able to scramble out and throw away the football. Man, oh man. Where do you go from here? Now that you go into the bye week, and I will say again, like a lot of players left this game with injury. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I know Blankenship went out. Carter went out. Who else? Who am I missing, chat? Who else went out in this game? There were a lot of guys. Obviously Lane was out, Devontae, AJ. I think Juergens went out in this game. Darius Slay went out in this game. I'm trying to think who else, man. A lot of guys were down, but you know, the Bucs didn't make excuses for it. They were down a lot of players too. Alan Brooks says front four don't know how to run stunt plays. Tin says we got a blitz. Baker got uncomfortable when we did. I agree. CJ says, I think if we take away turnovers and bad decisions, we would say it's on coaching and injuries. I mean, yeah, of course, but those are the things that win or lose games. Heath McDaniel says, how about Bryce Huff, who signed with Philly in the offseason? Yeah, I talked about Bryce Huff. I actually am not talking about him that much anymore because I already know what he is, and it's a complete whiff. And now that I think about it, when you go back to that signing, which I said, I made a video when they let Hassan Reddick go, when they traded him away. It's just a brutal decision, man. Everybody wanted to bank on the young upside because Howie Roseman got burnt before, right? When you think about contracts like Alshon Jeffrey and a couple other players that he paid that were too late in their career, they started to hit that what's the word? I don't even know, man. I'm so pissed off right now at Bryce Huff, but leveling out. Like they started to level out. You hit that age, and Howie paid him too late on the last contract. And he instead goes and pays Bryce Huff, who had one good season of 10 sacks, and he didn't even play half the snaps with New York because he can't stop the run. The more you think about it, it's just a brutal decision, man. Hassan Reddick has had double-digit sacks 4 consecutive seasons. And the guy's from Philly, like from the area. He's from Camden, New Jersey, went to Haddon Heights. And you let that guy go, man. Bad decision. But then again, I also think to myself, would Hassan Reddick even be much more productive in a Vic Fangio defense? Maybe a little bit. He'd definitely be better than Bryce Huff. But how productive would he really be? So that's what I'm starting to think to myself. And I just don't think the scheme is a formula for success. It's just not a formula for success. Let's see. Mr. Mann says, I'm not a fan of Vic Fangio. They were flat, but you can't blame the defense for the offense having 10 plays in the first half and 100 RB. Jalen doing it in the red zone every game. It is killing us. Yeah, I agree. Offense struggles to get in rhythm early. Why? Because they're not using Saquon Barkley. If you go back to week 1, Eagles-Packers, I don't know if you recall, but Saquon had 4 consecutive runs that really jolted life into this team from week 1. Possession number 1, drive number 1. Saquon is what puts this team on its back and gets it going. He's like the startup of the car, right? You put the keys in the ignition, right? And you turn it. That's what Saquon does for this offense every time he's in the game. But the problem is the last couple of weeks, it's been in the third quarter because they don't use him in the first quarter. Overall, I would say it's frustrating seeing what works and not doing it and not replicating it. That's something that's really pissed me off for years with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I don't know. You've had games where you see what works and you go away from it. Why is that? Ponce says CJ Gardner-Johnson also left on the cart at the end of the game. Yeah, I mean, guys were huffing and puffing. They needed liquid IVs probably because it was so hot and just nasty out there. And man, it's a brutal game. Not because they lost the game, but because of how they lost the game and the fact that now 3 weeks out of 4, this defense has not shown up. And they're relying on young players to be the striking force, to be the leaders of this defense, especially up front, and they just can't come through. ABD says plateau. Yeah, there it is. Thank you. I was thinking platoon. I'm like, no, it's not the right word. Plateau is the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Sintel says we would at least have a little threat of pressure. CJ says Sweat is not even playing how he played last year. The whole defensive line is embarrassing, man. Josh Sweat had a sack in this game, and Brandon Graham had one. Were those the only 2? Yeah, those are the only 2. Thomas Booker had a nice game a couple weeks ago. He's nowhere to be found. Moro Ajomo was in a little bit. Didn't do much. Even though Isaiah Rodgers made that special teams play, I think that giving them the ball on the 20-yard line is just inexcusable, and This team misses Britton Covey. As crazy as it sounds, they miss Covey. ABD says, I said this earlier, why do fans seem to see the problems and have solutions, but the coaches don't? It's a great question. It's a great question. I think my best response to that is sometimes coaches think they're a little too smart for themselves. And instead of just doing the easy things that work, instead of just letting Saquon run the ball 25 times, I think they just want to have the wow factor. I think they want to have the sexy plays, instead of just grinding it out in the mud, seeing what works, and using that from week to week. That's one possible response to that. And I see it in a lot of sports too, not just football, basketball, same thing. I don't know why they just don't do what works. Like, do the simple things, the fundamentals. This team is not fundamentally run. They're not well-oiled in any area. It's inconsistent, man, from one week to the next, and it's frustrating. Nick says, I think y'all should have gotten another receiver in the offseason. That's a great point, too. I forgot about Jahan Dotson, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to Paris Campbell. He was cut in camp, and he was frustrated. He talked about it this week. At least he came out and had a touchdown. Does Jahan Dotson just not know the playbook? Is that the issue? I mean, you got to get him up to speed at some point. 2 catches for 11 yards for Jahan Dotson. I know you were strapped this week, but come on. Come on, Dotson. Sweat is a complimentary pressure player when he has people like Reddick getting pressure. I agree. Shout out to Hayden Azanaro, $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Says, forget Josh Sweat. Bryce Huff has 3 hurries and no sacks. Only 1 tackle in 3 games. I think you mean 4 games. 4 games. My man has logged 1 solo tackle in 4 games. 4 games, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to admit it, Hayden. It's time to admit it. He's a bust. He's a bust. But that's really all I got on this game, man. I don't know where they go from here. I don't know where they go from here. They need to figure out these defensive woes. They need to come in and approach these games differently. See if I can find anything else here on Twitter. Devin White needs to be cut. Devin White actually just tweeted this out 40 minutes ago. I just saw it here. He says, look at what tweeting got me. I'm not even at the stadium, bro. Devin White, this is Devron Davis on behalf of the NFL. You have been selected to complete a performance-enhancing substance test. What? He didn't even play. He didn't even play. Why is Devin White getting drug tested? I'll tell you why. They're probably testing you to try to understand why anybody would put out a tweet against their own team. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why. Unreal, man. Unreal. I don't know, man. It's comical. It's comical. Bryce Huff through 4 games, ladies and gentlemen. 0 sacks, 0 quarterback hits, 0 quarterback pressures, and 1 tackle. Not for a loss. Oh, man. I feel like they brought in the wrong defensive coordinator. The pass rush has to be better. The guys have to be able to cover better. And Jalen Hurts cannot turn the football over in the big-time moments. That's what I got, man. That's what I got. I guess the positive beam of light from today is that you're not 0-4. You realistically could be 4-0 for being honest, but you're 2-2. Your division stinks, and you still have an opportunity to win the division, but you got to figure out a lot of stuff, man. Here's a live look at the Eagles division, the NFC East. Right now, they're tied with the Dallas Cowboys. It sickens me. 2-2. Commanders are 2-1, technically leading the division. They play the Cardinals. That game probably already started. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. People laughed at me when I said the Commanders could be a good team this year. I said they'd be better than the Cowboys and the Giants. Commanders look good. They look good. ABD says, looking at the next 4 games, we're not playing any good teams. What is our record going to be? It's a good question. What version of the Eagles are we going to get? What version of the Eagles are we going to get? If we get the good version, they could win 3 out of 4. But if not, man, I think the seat's going to start sizzling a little bit, if you know what I mean. The hot seat, man. Nick Sirianni, you got to take charge. You have to take charge at some point. You got to make a change. You got to do something. You have to do something. Howie Roseman on this bye week needs to go out there and, search around a little bit, scan the playing field, see who's available. Other than that, I don't know what else you can do. Calvin says we need a new defensive coordinator with the balls to blitz. I agree, man. I'm so tired of the soft defense. I think it kind of portrays a message to the whole defense. The mentality is just soft. So we'll see what happens, man. But once again, I want to thank everybody for constantly supporting the show. The channel has been growing a lot, and that's all because you guys are the best supporters in the world. So if you guys have not yet, do me a favor, like this stream if you did enjoy it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are at 5.1K on the road to 10K now. Thank you all so much. A to Z Postgame presented by BetMGM. Once again, use the code ATOZPA, and hopefully the next couple of weeks they find a way to fix this. We'll have some videos out on the channel, but in the meantime, a lot of questions. Eagles go down in Tampa Bay. They lose at 33-16, and they got to fix things if they can. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good one, man. Peace.